Yeah, and with that, the 4 position is certainly going to be a little bit more stressed out, and that's a
Oh,
really
hold
good
up.
pick. Yeah. So that is maybe a little bit strange at first glance, but then you think about the teams that have been kind of running for Doom. They've been running mid Doom. And I think on Infamous alone is one of those players who will play maybe the more atypical matchups. So it's where Infamous are going to keep us guessing. They kind of have the perfect last pick draft right now because they've been able to pick up effectively 2 offlaners here. It's going to be a Beastmaster offlane, but it just means that the Doom is going to be a big question mark that Infinity have to deal with. Meanwhile, Infinity are a little bit more cut and dry. I feel like on paper, at the very least, would probably see Mariano Sand King at this point in the game, just because that's really kind of one of the heroes that he's been playing, even when it hasn't been the best situation, just because it does provide so much for their kind of secondary jump. That's probably the hero that I would see them swing for now, but this Beastmaster does prove to be kind of a menace. And in regards to Genic, now if you ever were thinking about a hero, let's say like the Nyx Assassin, can't really go for that anymore. If you do, you are going to kind of put him at risk of playing versus those creeps, and we know how bad that hero plays versus that hero. But versus the Doom and the Gripstroke, Nyx Assassin's fantastic, and that feels like exactly what Genic would want to go for. It's not a
Okay.
Nyx, but Tusk is going to be able to do maybe a little bit more here. And that might be the
Oh,
Mariana Snapfire. Exciting. The SA Snapfire, the offlane Snapfire. The region's finally getting some speed.
yeah, the snap so flexible in terms of its positioning and well, if it is the 3 snap, I can see that snap tusk duo being unbelievably obnoxious against really anyone that Infamous try to put in that lane. So they got to be a little bit more cautious about this one, especially with the way their draft sort of looks with this Grimstroke maybe having to shift over to the 5. Grimstroke in lane certainly can play aggressively, but in terms of defensive potential, he's a little bit more iffy on that.
Yeah, and it's just in regards to the lane, you've got the snowball to dodge out the ink swell, you've got the cookie to get on top of him. It feels like it is the perfect counter, but there you go. That's your TA. They set up for it. It is, again, killable. And I think that's the point of Infinity letting it through here. Every single time we see TA bans versus Infamous for this express reason. It's Parker's hero. It is arguably his best hero. And I think Infinity very confidently going up against it. They can certainly take him down. I am just a little bit scared about those timings, especially when it comes for them eventually marching towards that pit. It's where you do worry about tools like the Hawk, where you do worry about the combo with the Doom Grimstroke. It's where you do worry, how do we actually get past these TA traps? How do we actually walk into the pit to take him down? It's a lot of questions that Infinity have to ask here. At the same time, though, any stun ever lands on this TA, it's the kisses, it's the grip, it's the punch, it's so much physical damage. If they ever catch the TA out alone, Parker needs to do everything that Kitaro did do yesterday, and then hopefully not get hit by any stun, because he will just die so quickly.
EKB would certainly do well in terms of being high on that priority item list. So we shall see. Of course, on the flip side of this, you mentioned for Infamous having some damage, having the Hawk for the vision, looking at sort of how they could potentially deal with Lumiere. That was something that Nouns did incredibly well in game one, maybe not quite as well in game number two, but looking back at those replays, they forced Lumiere to move way more than he reasonably wanted or needed to. He was constantly getting sort of shuffled around, and on a Terrorblade and a CK in those 2 games, he still found his farm, but it wasn't nearly at the rate that Infinity kind of wanted. So if Infamous can use some of that extended vision to try and put pressure on him in a similar manner, that might help the TA get maybe a little bit more of an edge.
Yeah, and well, with the Beastmaster TA combo specifically, as both teams are going to go into their mid lane here, it is going to maybe be a little bit of a struggle for Infamous if they don't do well in their lanes here. As we always talk about with Beastmaster, it's an offlaner that anchors the lane. He just sits there for quite a while there. And hey, speak of DK, there he is. Super Salt Hero. That's your another stun that could just chain a hero 100-0 from death. A really good combo, also pretty stable, but at the same time, did Infinity ban out enough heroes here? That's what you have to think about right now. It's where could they actually get away with this DK pick? Is there anything left in the pool? I mean, if you want to talk about heroes that may have narrowly avoided getting banned, there is still Storm Spirit in the pool. But think we want to see that hero necessarily, even though Infamous do kind of need an initiator here. They don't have the cleanest jump right now with Beastmaster Doom Grimstroke. They certainly love to have another hero to just go in. Honestly, maybe Void Spirit would be kind of a sick pick, even though he does kind of struggle versus the DK in lane, and definitely struggles after the DK gets level 6. Any hero that's going to be Inkswelled going in is probably going to be what they're going to pick here for alone. But let's see it.
Whoa.
Okay, and that's the thing. They didn't have enough bans to go for this DK, and now PP is going to be under a little bit of pressure. Hasn't been really, or has been quite a long time since I've seen the DK versus Viper matchup, but I feel like this might be a little bit rough for PP. I think that's where Infamous, they could have gone for a Spirit, they could have gone for something to maybe shore up their team fight, but counter picks it is.
And yeah, I mean, what do you think about that? The counter pick to try and just straight up demolish the lane does leave Infamous maybe a little bit low in terms of initiation, but do you think what they have with this lineup is going to be enough to make up for that?
I think it's pretty scary. I think it's pretty deathball-y. Not to mention, as we were talking about way back when in the beginning of this tournament, Viper versus CK is great. You put the Nether Toxin down, he doesn't have Chaos Strike. He doesn't have really all that much damage. Even if he does pull you, honestly, he's hoping he reality rifts you out of it. And if you're buying a BKB on CK, which you usually have to do after a long string of small items, well, then they know which one is you. So you get roared, you get doomed. It's very obvious then how Infamous want to pace out this team fight. It's really unfortunate, I think, that Infinity, in going for this DK, kind of opened up quite a big window here. And Infamous, they need to win their lanes. They need the space. As we were talking about before, Beastmaster, he anchors down the off lane. It's space that your TA can't retreat to very typically. If they do start to fall behind, then you're going to see that space really get eaten up quite quickly. It's where you do wonder if the Viper is going to either add or take away from that here. But it is still DK versus Viper. That's still pretty mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still just not a fun lane no matter what. We'll see what the long-term effects are, but got themselves an opportunity to really do some work in that lane and try to snowball in the right direction as we are getting this one underway. Game 1 here in the second round of the lower bracket final. Winner moves on to round 3. Loser has their run in this event brought to an unfortunate end. Okay, interesting link we're putting in here, but I don't know. These guys, they are more than familiar with each other, ET, so some banter, some pleasantries being exchanged before we get underway.
Yeah, and all these teams, they've played with each other, they've been in iterations, they've been in different rosters and different lineups. The inner workings of these teams are really kind of obvious to each other. It's where it does get pretty fun for a lot of these players, especially the cores, because it feels like there's always that core shuffle that comes after a season where the supports might stay the same, but you never know who's going to be anchoring down your safe lane here. But it's pretty funny. And it's some good rapport. I don't think either of these boys are too upset with each other. Not that same NASA rivalry that I think we sometimes see play out.
I don't know. We'll circle back and see how people are feeling by the end of this series because it might shift a little bit. But for now, all in good fun as we do get this underway. Pretty even split there on the bounties. No funny business in terms of trying to take those early fights, which really not all that surprising, especially from the Viper here alone. Sure, could have played some bully ball there in the river, but you really do need to conserve your mana in this middle lane because your job is to shut PP down.
Yep. And that's really where, as we always talk about with Viper, at level 1, you're really only okay with this trade if you can get the 5 stacks. If you can't get the 5 stacks, it's most likely better to wait until you're level 3, just because level 2 poison attack is brutal. It's very annoying. And PP, yeah, has to go for the DK stun and will be able to deny the range creep. Very nicely played from him, but it's just the beginning of many small plays that PP has to make this lane seem alright.
And he is going to have to put a hell of a lot more effort in compared to the Viper, who just gets to kind of chill and do Viper things. Meanwhile, I want to ask you about this offlane setup here for Infamous. You got Oscar, you got Michael on the Doom. This is a duo that doesn't really feel like it can get particularly aggressive, and actually on cue, Oscar's the one who's getting jumped in the tree line. Prada, nice angle, goes to the north, and there's your first blood, so I don't know, what do you think? Does this kind of have to be a more farm-oriented lane for Infamous?
It kind of has to be, but at the same time, you're playing versus CK, and we already know what this hero is able to do. We know that if you get lucky on this Chaos Bolt damage, it just has such a high end where you do just end up eating just too much damage. Oscar, of course, is going to be greeting out for the Helm of Iron Will, so it's not like the Beastmaster has too many items. Eventually, once they get a few more levels, then you're going to see the Devour, then you're going to see some more farm kind of coming on from both sides here. But until then, it's a free lane for Lumiere. Lumiere really is going to be put under very little pressure. It's why I think Michael should maybe go for some creep pulls, perhaps once he gets either a little bit tanky or has some boots, because without that, we really could see them start to struggle here.
Michael, I feel like he is going to play an incredibly big role in this game. I mean, you see uh, across some of the other regions just how important that Doom ends up being. That Blink Doom play is potentially teamfight changing. That also means, however, that Michael is going to have to be given a little bit of priority in terms of farm as, up in the top lane, Parker not able to get away. There's that combo. They get the shards, they get the snowball in, they have the cookie stun. It's just all coming together, and ET, just as we said in the draft, A on this Grimstroke can only do so much defensively. Once the ink swells down, that's kind of all he's got.
Yeah, and it's a real easy dodge for Genic. There's not really all too much you can do, and of course TA will very naturally push in the creep wave, especially if you're trying to make the trades work for you, if you do even get those side blades, but it's just hard. It's very difficult, and you're going to get level 3 first on Genic here. Mariano already got his, but it's where you're going to have all 3 spells on the Tusk. It's where I think both Parker and A need to be incredibly careful, especially Parker. You lose the TA again, it's that nightmare situation where the lane is just over.
Can't afford to get set back too significantly here, as Genic and A are just kind of duking it out a little bit. Still not quite level 3 on the Tusk, so will it continue to wait? Can Genic stop the pull? Kind of. One melee creep gets taken away, but that's it, so not able to get that sort of control that he wanted. And actually, he's just going to pull that creep all the way back into the lane anyway, so mission accomplished if you're the Tusk.
Yeah, and they're really kind of baiting here. Yeah.
Shards play to start. Cookie stun comes in. Did get the refraction off, but it's only level 1. Doesn't really absorb that much damage. Mariano, though, just missed on the scatter blast. That's a little bit uncharacteristic there, missing that one. Not sure if they would have gone all the way and had it hit, but without that extra damage, well, Yannick doesn't want to commit the snowball with the health that he had left.
Yeah, and it's honestly really patient. They, instead of going for the dive, a dive where he probably could have gotten turned on by the meld, just kills the sentry instead and then gets to give his salve over to Mariano, because Genic's been sitting on 300 or 400 HP for a good minute now. He's just been really patient here, making sure that Mariano can actually stay in his lane. But it does mean they kind of have to be passive now. It's really just A, pestering the Tusk, because if Genic goes in, he will most likely die here. It's where he needs the reset. Unfortunately, though, mid, that's your solo kill. It's gonna kind of happen eventually, but 3 points up in the poison attack. That's really unfortunate. As well as once the DK TP's back to lane, Alone's going to be level 6. If Alone can get mana in the next few moments here, it's where you don't have TP, and they're also dying top. Oh boy.
Now A might be in some trouble as well. There's the snowball to dodge the Inkswell stun, and do not believe your Grimstroke's getting out of this one. No HP, no healing. Tried for the deny, but neutral creeps were fast asleep, not able to help him out. Mariano grabs the double, and, well, Infinity looking pretty strong basically everywhere other than mid, and actually right on cue. This could be a play onto Oscar. Are they looking to go? Prada does not have a whole lot of HP, and yeah, they're able to focus fire onto him, take him down. Now Lumiere has to actually fall back because his health's not in a great spot either. The axes will come through. One more right click from Michael. Actually gets the job done, and that CK did not show enough respect to the damage coming out. Lumiere just thought he was going to be safe to walk away. Very much not the case. So he goes down. Genic, I believe, just intentionally, yeah, killed himself off to a tier 2 tower there. So that is going to technically tie up the kill score there, but it's still infamous with 2 kills down bot.
Yeah, and I think maybe from Michael there, it's just coming from having the right creep. He got the mana burn creep, which is honestly really lucky. It's why they actually blocked up their own medium camp, as you do get to see Prada steal away that haste rune from Alone, which is quite nice here. But yeah, that double kill bottom, though, is so tough for you. Now Michael gets to have that much more levels in the early game to play with. Of course, you give a lot of farm over to Oscar with no heroes in the lane as well. Oscar gets this creep pull behind his tower, and the Beastmaster's recovered. He is back.
Not a whole lot needed to sort of balance those scales for him, and look at Michael's sort of quick buy here. Okay, I've got my Trank Boots. Time for a Blink Dagger. He knows what the Doom is sort of about in this scenario. Of course, it's going to take him a while to get there, but the Devour does give you a certain amount of sort of guaranteed income, so progress will almost certainly be slow, but it is going to be steady, whereas on the Infinity side, their supports can't really produce much unless they're just straight up killing, and they're going to give that a go. Unfortunately for Mariano and Genic, this was a completely scouted play. This scan sort of reveals them. A, though, is trying to act as the bait in this scenario, and does manage to stun up one, but that is going to be a nice snowball. It doesn't actually pull him that far away, though, but far enough. Parker and Alone don't want to commit any further.
Yeah, it's a smart smoke. They do it knowing how fast you got your level 6 on Mariano. So very possibly they also could have gotten in the creep wave or out of the fog and then smoke up not knowing if their opponents even know that the level 6 is available. But unfortunately, they don't hit. They get their ward dewarded. Really just kind of a failure of a play. And at the same time, Lumiere's getting... Oh, no. Well, good toggles. Great toggles, but it doesn't matter. That's so unfortunate.
Weren't for that Infernal Blade, he was out of there with the armlet toggle. Instead, cancel TP, kill for Oscar. First kill, actually, for Oscar. So, at this point, I mean, bottom lane's lost if you're Infinity, right? I don't think there's much more they can do here.
I'm looking top. They want Parker so bad.
Okay. Question now is, does Genic live? Mariano's trying to sort of run interference, might be able to take down A, but with Michael coming in, everybody's got to be so careful here. Parker, that's insanely greedy. He is actually trying to push back in, and he might pay for this.
He's definitely
maybe
gonna
not.
pay for it.
Still holding, trying, but there's the Scatter Blast to take him down. Parker's a greedy boy, but he gets the kill, and can Michael cancel this TP? No, he can't. Can't even get into the trees, actually, so Mariano's able to get one and get away, and Parker... Well, ET, I don't know. Do you think that kill's worth getting picked off immediately afterwards?
You got the XP, you know? Worst case scenario, you do go down, but at the very least, you know, you split a kill with Michael, now you're doomed level 6. It really is just kind of startling how high level everybody is in this game already, aside from maybe A, but no, Parker's certainly have the roughest early game on his team. It's where I think he's really going to need to just kind of put his head down, farm the jungle. It's exactly what he's doing already. At the very least, he's got a nice, pretty double stack here to farm up. But at the same time, during all of that, Oscar got bottom tower. Oscar got his Helm of the Dominator. He's going to occupy all of this space and then collapse on mid. Now it's just a question of whether or not the Viper is going to be ready to make this transformative play happen on the map, or if we do see a little bit more of that farming playstyle kind of happen for Infamous, because they do kind of need to bide their time maybe a little bit more here. But that's where already Infinity are trying to get set up. They know that there's going to be a big defense here. You just wonder if they have enough. They're going to have their kisses up in 10 seconds here. They do actually have to make a call, though.
They need to sort of bring everyone over to the middle lane if they're willing to commit for that fight. Of course, you're going to take this fight without PP having Elder Dragon form, because that's down to about a fourth of its duration. So that would make the defense a little bit more difficult. But at this point, that's assuming that the defense is actually coming in the next minute or two, because Infamous, well, as of right now, they're leaning a little bit more towards the farm game, a little bit more towards vision and control in this south side jungle instead, which I talked about it in the draft. That was sort of a big deal, what Nouns did. Lumiere had to do a lot of maneuvering to find his farm, and he's sort of situated in this west side jungle for now, but the bottom lane and the whole south side is just kind of enemy territory at the moment.
Yeah, and with the cart wave, it's a very natural timing for Infamous to go for this play on the mid lane. I just don't have your level 6 on A, unfortunately, so we're not going to see that double Doom just yet here, but this is a good smoke from Infinity. They have Blink Dagger finished up on the DK. It was a very nice rush from PP to get to agree with his items, and Oscar, okay.
Kisses are going to come in. Oscar will turn around for the roar, though, trying to break it up, but he will still die. But now they're going to try and turn this around, but they don't really have the numbers. Alone gets hit by the Walrus Punch. He's immediately going to go down. I think now they can maybe start to turn. They've taken down Mariano. Parker's involved in the fight now. Lumiere, though, nice toggling once again. I don't know if they actually take him down, because PP, he's got that form back up. He gets in, he gets the stun onto the Templar Assassin, so Parker cannot continue the chase onto the Chaos Knight, and your PP, yeah, he's going to look to chase down at least one more here. A is not a very fast hero on this Grim, and should be able to do this. A is certainly buying a lot of time, but not enough. PP gets the kill. 3 for 1 in total in that middle lane, and ET, that goes about as well as I think they could have hoped for.
Yeah, it's unfortunate you still lose the Snapfire, but that is the risk of being a Viper in this game. Alone is just maybe a hair too far up. He gets snowballed, he gets reality rifted back. He's so far up on the high ground. Infinity want to, with the reality rift and the Shredder, they just have so much anti-armor, and then you're dead. Unless you have a BKB, unless you have a Force Staff, you're not really able to get out right now, and I think that's where we might see Alone take a complete turn and just immediately go for the BKB, because another play like that, and then you lose a lot of that momentum that you spent so much time building up on this Viper hero. I don't even think he had another Toxin down, but that's also just such a bad timing from Infamous, because A, still wasn't level 6. You didn't have the immediate soulbind. He was still kind of waiting in the trees. It felt like they weren't even ready for that push in, to be honest, and it's not the biggest cost in the world. It's not like they immediately lost their mid tower or anything, but it is where you are kind of seeing the levels even out now, and honestly in favor of Infinity.
Leave, where's that courier at? Courier delivering a Blink Dagger out to Mariano, so got blinks on 2 of your cores here. The CK not really working on one, but could come later. But the point being, they've got that mobility. They've got that extended range to work with now. And Infamous, on their side, don't really have anything to match right now. So could be a concern for them. At least ET, they do get that tier 1 tower mid that they were looking for before that previous fight broke out.
Yeah, Infinity just weren't ready for round 2. They wanted to take maybe a little bit more time and step back there, as well as I think Lumiere taking the call to use this Phantasm and just push into the top lane, and they are getting some nice chip on this tier 2 tower. I think that's probably the cost they were looking for, but if they use their glyph here, it's going to feel a little bit unfortunate from Infamous. It's why, though, they're doing this cut and play. This is where they would love their double Doom, double Viper Strike. Everything's going to come from that Soulbind here, but Genic might be a little bit too smart. They need the pull.
Are able
Nice
to silence
dodge.
them up. Good, good Nightmare out there. Is it going to be enough, though? Genic is still taking that DOT, and yeah, he's still going to die. It's a nifty play from Prada, though, just to try and buy a little bit of time, but not enough. But ET, even with the Tusk being taken down, the core heroes that were up in that top lane just bail out, and they're fine.
Yeah, 4 heroes for a Tusk is not a trade that Infamous were looking for. They wanted that usage of their ultimates. They wanted that kind of timing, but at least they were able to kind of place this Hawk in a nice spot. They're going to be able to see where these heroes spread out across the map, but unless Infamous make another read here, I don't think they're going to go for that immediate smoke play again. They need to actually finish up a lot of their small items. Infinity got their small items first. They have their blinks, they have their armlets, they have their little bits. But at the same time, Infamous have none of that. They have much more expensive items to look for. Your BKBs, your Ags, your Viper still needs to really make a choice here. Blink Dagger on the Doom. They really don't have anything, and I think that's where Infinity, they kind of need to start pressing the issue maybe a little bit more here. And I think that's why they're going for the smoke right now, but it is paramount that they actually find a hit here, because any kill they're going to get on the dire side of the map should result in the mid tower at the very least taking a whole bunch of damage. But they need to kind of make these plays. They've got the vision down too. It's just Infamous reading very well.
A lot of movement, but not a lot of opportunities at the moment if you're Infinity. But, well, if all else fails, could just go for this tier 2. Yeah, they're going to go for the tower. If A steps forward, Prada's just going to
This is
sort of
crazy.
search for him. Be able to find him. Oh, there
Yeah.
it is. They see him now. They'll go in. TP from Alone. That's, yeah, that's too late, and he is going to cancel it. So they do have to sacrifice A there. They might just be able to turn this into a 1-for-1 tower trade, though, because the rest of the lineup is hitting on the tier 2 down bot. So you're going to get some of that money back, at least if you're Infamous, but as you said, they really do need to sort of get it in gear with some of these bigger item purchases. Oscar, at least, is still going strong. Got the Helm of the Overlord now for himself, so not a bad touch there, but you need Parker to get this damage output, and then well, maybe then the fights look a little bit better. But unless he has that Deso completed, I don't think they really want it.
This is really smart, though. Just going immediately into the pit, knowing that they can do it with the Tusk, with their little bit of anti-armor, with the Shredder. Yeah, they got to go on Infamous. They know how important this is. They've got a DD, they've got a full Deso on the TA. They need to be careful of Lumiere's
Oh, Genic.
BKB. They don't know, but yeah.
That's so unfortunate. He just got stunned up by Roshan. Michael tried to get in on the back line, so they are going to be able to deploy the double Doom. Yannick and PP both dead. Parker, though, is stuck in the Fiend's grip, so Prada's going to be able to get one more for the tally for his side. Still going to be a 3 for 2 if you're Infamous, but with Parker dead... Okay, never mind. I was going to say, do you feel comfortable taking Roshan? But it had already lost half of its health, so they're just going to group up and go for it, and they should be able to take this.
Yep, it should be kind of there. It's unfortunate because you want to give your TA the Aegis still, so the Viper taking it is kind of just a circumstance of Parker going down, but hey, it's an Aegis in your hands nonetheless here. Now Alone doesn't really need to be scared of anything, but the entire fight gets blown wide open because Michael takes that long wrap around in the triangle, gets the Doom onto the CK, gets his BKB off, but with the armlet toggled on, takes so much damage, so Lumiere kind of just has to waltz out of the fight, has to leave his teammates, and even though they do kill Parker, they slow down the TA again even further, you're still not really getting any tower pressure. You trade your tier 2s, and honestly, all the way back to that trade, you're trading it into your opponents who are looking for more expensive items. It's where you are certainly more prepared for the fight right now on Infinity. How much longer you're going to be more prepared for that fight, I'm not entirely sure, because you are seeing those items actually getting finished now on Infamous, and that's the scary timing where you do wonder if you're actually going to be able to deal with these items. I mean, before, we were not looking at Blink, we were not looking at BKB. Now all those items queued up, it's very real. In the next few minutes, we're going to have those items completed on Infamous's side.
Yeah, I mean, you got to assume Infinity are starting to sort of feel that that's getting picked up, just sort of clicking on the inventories of their opponents when they can, so... The only problem is if you look to make a play now, you're fighting in it to the Aegis. Do you feel like Infinity still need to just try for it anyway?
Yeah, they've got to. They need to find A, they need to find Michael, and, well, there you go. They found A and Michael.
It's like they can hear you. Yeah, that's a little too far, Genic. That's very aggressive, but there's the kisses coming through. They get the roar into PP, so Mariano is still firing off that artillery, and oh, Prada tried for that ult once again. Locked down Parker for a while. Parker does end up dying, but Michael was able to blink onto the high ground to cancel it. Now they are looking to turn the fight. Oscar with that domed creep just gets straight onto Lumiere, and we've been sort of talking up his toggling all game long. That time it was not enough. So Infamous, they win another fight, ET, but they lose Parker again. It's a bit unfortunate that they're not able to keep that TA alive, but it's keeping them in the lead, so I guess you take what you can get.
Yeah, and it's at the very least nice that with the Beastmaster, you do have pushing potential after your TA goes down, as Michael is going to go for that blink, which is a little wild. But yeah, it sucks to lose the TA, but without a BKB, that is your risk of getting involved this early into the game. But it was a nice try from Infinity. They found A. That was no Soulbind. That was no Doom in the fight either. He just had the Blink War Stomp, but Michael got 2 of them off in that fight. The second one, most importantly, canceling out the grip. It was a really nifty position from Prada up on the high ground to actually find his way onto the TA, but even in Lumiere there, he did not feel comfortable popping his BKB. He didn't even want to use his 8-second charge. It's why he gets to kind of die with a whimper, because he knows that he's going to need this BKB going further. He knows that there's going to be a better team fight than what just happened. But again, all of this fight, it's away from the buildings. It's not on Infamous's side. It's not with them being forced into that position. Even though it's a nice grab, I still am very concerned here because Infamous are just building up so many items. That was with your Viper pretty much tapped on mana as well. Alone kind of stopped doing damage in that fight, and it was still enough. It's just not really what you want to see here. And again, can't highlight it enough. Just seeing 3 or 4 BKBs queued up on the Infamous side. Once you have those, well, your Snapfire's not really doing all that much, and I think that's why maybe Mariano has this Daedalus queued up here, but that build doesn't really work for you until you're 25.
Yeah, it feels like something for Infinity that's getting a little iffy right now. The CK does some damage. The rest of the lineup is conditional damage, right? Mariano with the kisses does well, but when the kisses are gone, he doesn't really do too much. PP needs the dragon form and has to have it for really the entirety of a fight, so it gets a little bit awkward. In the meantime, do want to ask you about this. Parker actually eschewing the BKB to go for the Aghanim Scepter play first, as well, you can give your answer after the fight here, because Prada's going to get taken down, and now Lumiere, he is just so damn slow. He's hit by the Doom. He's not getting himself out of this one alone, picks up the double. And now, Infamous are pushing the high ground, so yeah, they're going after the tier 3. You have the Templar Assassin TPing away, but I suppose with the Aghanim Scepter, he can get right back in there if he needs to.
Yeah, and that is I think the reason that he goes for it. He just knows that, well, he's going to be able to go back. And they're even baiting with the TA trap here. They want to walk up and kill it, but they're not going to do it in time. Now the DK is TPing in, and he will be able to get the stun up on alone. 3 seconds on Aegis. It will tick out, but your Rax is gone. That's your glyph. They could swing for mid as well if they want to, or they could back out all the way and take your entire map. There's no bad option for Infamous right now. And honestly, I think that's where the Ags, if the BKB was going to save you from one, the Ags is going to save you from all. That's your situation where if Infinity don't kill you just 1-1 there, 100-0, you get your reset. You get to survive. I think that's also why he's queuing up the Lincoln Sphere. He knows that's probably the most likely way for him to go down. But you are still killable. Without the BKB, you can die to Kisses still very likely right now, but it's still a struggle. Infinity are the ones that need to make the call. They need to smoke up pretty much yesterday, but they might be forced to wait. They don't have DK for him. They probably want to wait for the BKB on the Dragon Knight as well, but at the same time, there's no Doom. There's no Grimstroke ulti for maybe another 10 seconds here, but it's these slight timings that I don't think Infinity are really taking.
Yeah. You want to be at your full strength, but if you wait for your full strength, you're kind of waiting for your opponent's full strength as well, so I don't know. Infinity don't want to compromise on their team fight power, and to a certain extent, I can understand that because we just talked about, you know, a lot of their heroes don't really have their full complement of damage at this point in the game, so you feel like you do need all hands and all spells on deck, but I mean, the longer this goes on, it's an 11k lead for Infamous, and they're not really stopping. They're going to go in again, and Prada going to have to be the sacrificial lamb here.
Yep, perfectly played. Alone just gets the slow, then Michael gets the stun, then he wakes up the Viper, and then they get the D wards because they have a gem on Oscar, and all of the control in this game is just slipping away. And I'm just staring at this mid tower on Infamous' side, just still alive, still being that vanguard to get them out onto the map. They really just need to do, I think, a good job of defending this high ground here. They got their glyph refreshed because they do go the long way on Infamous, taking out every building in sight, but at the same time, they see that you're not in the base right now. They see your Snapfire showing bottom. They're going to pester this top lane a little bit here. Actually, they're going bottom.
Ooh.
They're looking for PP. No
It's a
BKB.
problem. He does not have it up yet. He's just going to get hit by the Doom. Genic tried to get in position for maybe a snowball play, but
Oh, no.
it's not going to happen. He actually canceled his TP, too. Canceled it himself, so he's kind of stuck in no man's land. Michael's just going to run him down. In the meantime, over in the base, Lumiere's fighting alone. The trio for Infamous are able to bring him down. This is all falling apart, ET. There's only one buyback right now between those two dead cores, and it would be PP buying back with no Elder Dragon form.
Yeah, and they're Megas. At the very least, I don't know if they call the GG out now or if they try to get one last fight in, but this is certainly going to be your Megas completed by Infamous here. There isn't all too much you can do here. Hey, at least Genic's alive, you know, limping back to the base, but yeah, I feel like they lost a lot of agency in this game, and yeah,
There it is.
they know. They're not a good Megas team. They know that they're not going to be able to hold for very much longer after that. Maybe if DK form was 100% uptime, that'd be a cool part of Dota, but yeah, just too clean from Infamous. And again, as we talked about before, in this same matchup, Parker was fine to farm. Parker was okay with maybe having a few early game deaths. They were ready. Infinity were more prepared. They had their items sooner. They had this power spike that they just did not press. And I think that's where this game kind of fell apart here. It feels like it came back to that first Roche, where as soon as they went for the Roche attempt, get scouted out, they don't go for a resmoke, they don't get to use the Lumiere BKB aggressively. I feel like that play in itself kind of blew this game wide open, and then you're in the situation where Parker is going to be okay farming. He gets to sit on his side of the map. Lumiere is stuck on the more active hero that is not farming. He's not really getting all too much here. And even though his timings are great, he's right up there with the rest of the cores in this game. It's just not enough to solo carry a game here. And I think it's that passivity that kind of ended up shooting Infinity in the foot. And you look at their KDAs, nobody really has a bad KDA. Nobody was feeding, nobody was really doing anything. And I think that's the problem. They weren't doing something. They were really trading away a lot of their towers, a lot of their objectives, and just not getting a good fight going for them. I mean, all things considered, I feel like this is a very low kill game.
Hmm. Yeah, 34 kills total there. I mean, it was a short game as well, so I suppose that does sort of maybe skew our thought process a little bit, but I don't know. It felt like Infinity missed some moments, and once again, I really hate to do this because I feel like I've said it 4 or 5 times now, but you go back to the game plan, the blueprint that Nouns put forward in that upper bracket matchup. They forced Lumiere to move and play inefficiently, and they took PP out of his element. That's exactly what Infamous did here. The CK farmed well, but not well enough to be first, and that DK, other than I think that blink onto Oscar mid, which still ended up in a lost fight for Infinity, he was not able to be any sort of significant playmaker for the Infinity side.
Yeah, and I think come game two, you have choice, get second pick, don't get last pick vipered. And I mean, honestly, PP was fine. PP had a 10-minute blink dagger. He was able to completely recover on the DK versus the Viper. There were maybe 200 net worth in between them, but you can't hold your mid tower. You can't get aggressive onto his tower. I think stylistically, the hero just kind of shut the DK out of exactly what wanted to do. PP had to look on the edge of the map to find his play, and they only really killed alone the one time. They only punished the Viper for being a Viper a single time. Don't think you can let that happen again. Take second pick. We'll have to see what they do in the draft.
And that draft is on its way. Game 2 is going to be coming up in just about 10 minutes here, so we shall wait and see if Infamous are going to get that clean 2-0 sweep and carry on the trend of 2-0 sweeps so far in this playoff bracket, or if Infinity can finally break that mold and push us to a full best of 3. So, ET and I will be stepping away for just a couple of minutes. When we come back, though, Game 2 between Infamous and Infinity. So stick around. Back.